Matthew chapter 5 verse 13. So what we'll do is, obviously because of the way today has gone, we'll spend most of tomorrow doing personal ministrations. I did say I was going to minister to everybody who came, but today is not one of those days. So tomorrow, if I've not ministered to you personally this week, tomorrow I'm going to minister to everyone by the laying on of hands and by the prophetic. So we'll do that tomorrow. So most of tomorrow, we'll do that. All right, Matthew chapter 5 verse 13. I do think that we will take a break at 4 p.m. today so that you can be refreshed before service commences at 5. Matthew 5:13, we'll read down to verse 16. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. This might be where I end this Sermon on the Mount. But really, this study is a beautiful study. Remember, if you were here from last week, we saw that the Sermon on the Mount lasted from Matthew chapter 5, verse 2 to the end of Matthew chapter 7. So Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 6, Matthew chapter 7 is one unbroken discussion. And then in Matthew chapter 8, Jesus comes down from the mountain again. So, we've looked through what we call the Beatitudes, the blessednesses, basically. And I think it's something that everybody should listen to. Of course, everybody should listen to everything, but there are particular emphasis that the Lord is raising with us recently that is important. So, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. You are not trying to be the salt of the earth. There is nothing you can do to become the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is then good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. So, Jesus is saying that you, his disciples, that's the audience, you are the salt of the earth. And I like to say in verse 14, he says you are the light of the world. And Jesus is very careful about the words that he uses. All right? You are the salt of the earth is equal to saying you are the salt of the land. You are the salt of the land. And Jesus seems to say that the goal or the function of the salt in the earth is directly tied to the taste of the salt. It's directly tied to the taste of the salt. The salt, you are not the salt of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are not the salt of the world. You are the salt of the earth. You are not the light of the earth. You are the light of the world. And when Jesus brings these two metaphors to paint a picture to his disciples, the salt metaphor and the light metaphor, Jesus brings warnings on both sides. So he says, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savour, that's its taste, how then shall it be salted? He now says that when salt has lost its taste, it becomes good for nothing. It becomes good for nothing. But Jesus now remembers that, oh, no, there's something that it is good for. And that thing is to be trodden underfoot by men. The warning is, because you are salt, you need to ensure that you retain your taste. You need to ensure that you retain your savour. If not, you're going to be useless. And the only thing that you will be good for is you will be good for being stepped upon and trodden underfoot by men. The next thing he says is you are the light of the world. He says you are a city that is set upon a hill that cannot be hidden. He now says that men do not light a candle and put it under a bushel, but they put it on a candlestick so that it will give light to all that are in the house. He now says, let your light so shine. So when you say let your light so shine, he's telling you that your light should shine in this manner. What is the manner in which your light should shine in? Two things. Number one, you should be like a city that is set on a hill, because a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. But there are other cities that can be hid. If the city is not set on a hill, it can be hid. But if it's set on a hill, it cannot be hid. Also to say that when men light a candle, they don't put it under a bushel, they put it on the candlestick so that it will give light to everybody that's in the house. So when Jesus says, let your light so shine before men, this is what he's talking about. He's saying that your light should shine in this manner. That is, be like a city set on a hill, and be like a candle that is on the candlestick, that you can give light to all that's in the house. These two metaphors that Jesus uses in describing the nature of his disciples are metaphors that come with warnings. Number one, you can lose your saltiness. Number two is you can be a candlestick that is put under a bushel. Or you can be a city that is not on a hill. You can be a city that is hid. And, well, that's one thing to be said. The next thing to be said is, like I was saying, Jesus ties the effect of the salt to the saltiness, to the taste. And I know that, and I think even myself, I've done that kind of thing, to say that when you look at salt is a preservative, and it can make things be preserved. And there is a sense in which believers are the salt. We are the ones that ensure that the earth is not destroyed. We are the ones that ensure that the earth is preserved. And that is true. It's not like it's false. It's true. But that's not what Jesus is primarily talking about here. What Jesus is primarily talking about here has to do with the taste of the salt. It doesn't have to do with the preservative quality of the salt. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't have to do with the preservative quality of the salt. And I said that it is not a lie, that it is true. It's true. But what Jesus is talking about has to do with the taste of the salt. And Jesus says that you are the salt of the earth. Without you, the earth will be tasteless, will be bland. I don't know if you have had a chance to mistakenly eat food that was not salted, right? And I don't even know how it works, but salt just does something to taste. All right? There is a blandness when you eat the meal. There is a tastelessness that you will encounter if salt is absent from the meal. And Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. But Jesus also goes on to say that it is possible for you to lose your saltiness. And he says that if you lose your saltiness, we cannot result in you. We cannot give you taste again if you have lost your taste, if you have lost your savor, if the taste that you have has been lost. It's most impossible to put it back again. And the reason I'm using almost is because of the implications. Because what Jesus says is actually that it's impossible. So he says, if the salt has lost its taste, how then shall it be salted? He now says, it is thenceforth good for nothing. So I'm sure you can see that good for nothing is not necessarily an insult. Right? It can be an insult, like there's how you can say something is good for nothing. But then you can also look at the government, right? And just say, it's not an insult. You are just describing reality. And Jesus says that it is possible for believers, disciples, to be good for nothing. The taste of the salt is the distinctive quality of the salt. The distinctive quality of salt is not in the color. I think there's pink salt, right? I've seen pink salt somewhere. There's pink salt. There's white salt. There's salt that is the normal salt that we have, and then there is salt that comes in bigger granules than that. The distinctive of salt is not in the color. The distinctive of salt is not even in the size. The distinctive of salt is in the taste. And it turns out that when you are cooking a meal, salt is the thing that enters into the meal in the least quantity, generally speaking. I don't know how you people do spices. But if you are cooking egusi soup, I'm sure that all things being equal, the salt will be less than the egusi. All things being equal, the salt will be less than the oil. All things being equal, the salt will be less than the vegetables in the soup. Because the quality of salt in its taste requires that salt does not need to be plenty to work. And again, I want you to understand what Jesus is saying. Because a lot of times, the way we interpret salt of the earth is we interpret it as salt of the world. So, generally speaking, the difference between the earth and the world is that the earth is the land. It's the earth. The world is the thing in the earth, the systems in the earth. The systems of government, the systems that men have set up is generally what is called the cosmos, the world. But that's different from the earth. And you are the salt of the earth. You are the salt of the earth. It seems as though there is a beauty. There is a taste that our presence in the earth brings to the earth. But if we lose that taste, then what will happen is the inhabitants of the earth will find out that we are good for nothing except to be trodden down underfoot. This trodden down underfoot is calling my attention. But Jesus says that without taste, we are useless. And men will realize our uselessness. And they'll begin to trample upon us. Come to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7 verse 6. He says, give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. Now, and I hope you realize the context here. The context of Matthew chapter 7 is judge not so that you will not be judged. Okay, let's read. Let's read from verse 1. Judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged again. And with what measure you meet, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in your brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in your own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of your eye, and behold, a beam is in your own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of your own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of your brother's eye. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. This is not directly related to what is going on in Matthew chapter 5, but I've been drawn here. So, Jesus says that you should not judge so that you will not be judged. And then Jesus explains what he means when he says judge not. He means that you shouldn't judge your brother if you are guilty of the same. That's basically what he's saying. Now, if you are guilty of something, you shouldn't judge another person. Basically saying that if you are guilty of something, don't try to correct the other person when you yourself are guilty of the thing. It's how people have double standards. When you do something, you can make an excuse for yourself. Right? But when somebody else does it, you can almost kill the person. Because you do not make an excuse for the person, even though if it were you, you would have made an excuse for yourself. Right? For instance, if you are driving your car and you bash the car, you can give an excuse, the driver was wrong, the other people on the road, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody borrows your car and drives it out and bashes the car, I remember one time I gave my car to my mechanic. Fix this thing that is wrong with the car. Then he fixed the car, then he carried the car and went out. And he bashed the car. After he bashed the car, he called me. Remember that our teaching, blessed are the merciful. Yes, I repaired the car. I paid for it. It's not sweet to be a disciple of Jesus sometimes. Sometimes it's better to be a disciple of Amadioha. Right? Just call thunder. I paid for it. Now, this is the context. The context is, don't correct your brother if you are guilty of the sin. That's basically what Jesus is saying. And Jesus says that what you want to do is you want to self-examine, remove the mote that is in your eye so that you can see clearly to remove that which is in your brother's eye. But Jesus now says, do not give what is holy unto dogs. What is the thing that is holy? The context is clear. It's judgment. Are you here? You are not here. The thing that Jesus is saying, don't give unto dogs, don't give what is holy unto dogs, or don't cast your pearls before swine, is judgment. If I bring correction to someone, and I said, this thing you are doing is wrong, if the person is a dog, according to the language, it's an analogy, all right? If the person is a dog, Jesus would expect that I won't bring it to him. That I won't bring correction to him. I won't come and say to him, this thing that you're doing is wrong. If the person is swine, again in that context, Jesus will not expect me to bring that correction to him. Because what I'm doing is I am giving what is holy unto the dogs. I am casting pearls before swine. Have you been on social media before? And then maybe a Christian makes a statement, and then an unbeliever comes and drags the morality of that Christian, and then another Christian now comes to drag the unbeliever. Then you realize that the unbeliever is shameless. Have you seen those kinds of things before? Like that the person is so shameless. And I'm telling you that shame is a good virtue. The ability to feel shame is a good thing. You know when you say somebody is shameless, what you mean is that the person cannot feel shame. It's a bad thing. No? Don't be that kind of person. Be the kind of person that shame can catch you. Because sometimes shame will stop you from doing certain things. Alright? It's a good virtue. The idea is this, that judgment, correction, showing this person what is right, in certain contexts, will be something that Jesus doesn't want you to do. Because this person is a dog. And he says, don't give what is holy unto dogs. And don't cast pearls before swine. Now, I don't want you going about saying people are dogs and they are swine and all of that. That's not the idea. The idea is an analogy. Jesus is just saying that there are certain things people do not deserve. If you bring it to them, what will happen is they will trample the thing that you bring underfoot, and they will turn again and rend you. So Jesus is saying that if you bring that which is holy unto dogs, and you bring pearls before swine, the swine and the dogs will not just trample on the thing that you bring. Even you that brought it will be a subject of the wrath of the swine and the dogs. So that you try to correct someone who, in Jesus' terms, is a dog or swine. What will happen is the person will throw away your correction, and the person will turn and start insulting you. Have you tried to counsel somebody that is in love? Someone in a relationship. So this lady is going out with this guy, but you know that the guy is an idiot. But this lady is your friend, and she loves the guy. So you come and meet the lady and tell the lady, or maybe you don't even come and meet the lady. The guy does something to annoy the lady. Then she comes and meets you. And then you are like, you have been waiting for this opportunity to truly tell her what's on your mind about this guy. Then she tells you, see what this guy did. And she's crying. And she's like, why will he treat me like this? And then you will not be like, yeah, why will he treat you like this? Now, sister, you deserve better than this guy. And the girl is like, yes, I agree. In fact, what you do is, you will call him now and break up with him. Then she will say, I left my phone in my room. When I reach, I'll call him. Hey. Then she will cry. You give her golden morn. She will eat. She will be fine. Then she will go to her room. You know what will happen? She and the guy will reconcile. Then you will come up. Eh? It's not just that your advice was trampled underfoot. The guy will now tell her to cut you off. That's happened to some of you, right? The guy will now tell her to cut you off. Then her and the guy will now start hating you. That's the kind of thing that Jesus is talking about here. That in order for you to say certain things to certain people, you have to be discerning. This is part of the reasons why there are people that I cannot say certain things to. This person is in a relationship, they want to get married, and I know that this is the will of the devil. You know, like I used to say to you, it's not every marriage that is see what the Lord has done. Sometimes it was see what Satan did. It was Satan. God could not stop it because the lady and the guy have decided that they will marry. So God allows them to go ahead. In that kind of situation, I used to discern the person before I talk. There are people that I know that if I tell them, break up this relationship today, they will break up the relationship. They don't need a reason. Do you understand? They don't need to know why. They don't need to know why I'm saying that. They will just obey and they will do that. But there are people that you know that you will need to convince them and convince the powers in the heavens to convince them, because just by discerning them, you know that they love the sister more than they love their destiny. So, even if you show them their destiny, like this girl will spoil your destiny, they will still marry her because they love her more than the destiny. In that kind of situation, when they come and meet you to ask your opinion, just tell them, let's be praying. Don't cast your pearls before swine. Are you following me? You see, sometimes, even in teaching, there are certain things that God will not permit that certain people be taught. Because like I've told you before, God doesn't like hearing no from people. Right? Yes. God is a king. God doesn't like hearing no. So there are certain things that God will not tell you because he knows you will say no. Meanwhile, those things may be important for your life. So maybe God wants you to fast for 14 days. Then we announce church fasting, 10 days. Then when we announce that church fasting, you were first unhappy. We're like, well, I will do 3 days. Then you did 3 days. Then after 3 days, you told yourself you just add 2. So you did 5 days. Then the next day, you were broke. So you didn't have food. So that's how you completed the 10 days fast. Then God wants you to add 14 days to that 10 days. But God knows that if I tell this one, she will say no. Guess what? God will not tell you. There are certain things you will not receive from God until there is a particular disposition of your heart. And the idea is, again, the language of dogs and swine, I know that it's offensive to our sensibilities and all of that. But in the Middle East, it wasn't. Calling someone dog or calling someone swine was normal language, right? It was normal. It wasn't. Do you remember that the woman that came to meet Jesus for healing, Jesus said, it's not fit for me to give the bread of children to dogs. Do you remember that? It was not an insult. And the woman did not say, how will you call me dog? The woman said, even the dogs, they eat the crumbs. So, I'm saying that I know that in our 21st century context, calling a human being a dog can be quite offensive. Or swine can be quite offensive. But that's not the context Jesus is speaking into. So in this context, it was acceptable to some extent. All right. So the point is that if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you need to ensure that you are not dog-like. You need to ensure that you are not swine-like. Let it be the case that your heart is at the place where the Lord knows that if he says something to you, if he brings something to you, to the best of your knowledge or to the best of your ability, you will try to obey him. Are you following me? Are you here? Let it be that. And you see, you hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that let it be that God knows where your heart is. The truth is, a lot of times, the things we say are not reflective of the places where our hearts are. And many times, you want to ask the Lord to help you because your heart needs to be at a place where it currently is not. But I'm saying to you that as much as possible, you need to try to ensure that your heart is totally devoted to God and that God knows, that God is aware. From time to time, in my prayers, I tell God that, you know that I don't have another God. Like, I don't have anything else. After you like this now, I'm finished. Without you, I'm gone. I'm saying to you that part of the things you want to be doing is you want to try to be letting God know. It's not because he doesn't know, but you want to know that he knows. Are you following? You want to know that he knows. Part of the things you want to be doing is you want to be trying to let the Lord know that without you, I have nothing else. Just the same way that you used to tell your babe that even if rain is falling, you are the sun that is shining. Right? And it's not because it's true. Do you understand? Because you feel cold, you wear jacket a lot. You wear jacket a lot. So it's not true that even when rain is falling, you are the sun that is shining. But you know how you used to say those kind of things to her? That's the way that you need to be saying these kinds of things to God as well. Like I used to say to people, God has said, I will never leave you, neither will I forsake you. You, what have you said to him? You say, well, I don't need to say it, he knows. Then why are you telling, every day you are telling her I love you? Why? We don't communicate like that. That's not the point. In a relationship, it's not about he knows. Like I heard the story of, I think it's supposed to be like a joke or something, that this guy got married to his wife, and then for 20 years or so, he never said to her that he loved her. And then she was complaining. So they went to see a counselor, and then the lady says, the man doesn't love me anymore. And the guy says, why do you say so? And she's like, he has not said I love you since the day we got married. And the guy was like, yeah, I said it once. If anything changes, I will let you know. Nothing has changed. Now, logically, he has a point. Right? Logically, he has a point. Yeah. But if you try it. Because human beings are not robots. Are you following me? I'm getting distracted. Human beings are not robots. Human beings are human beings. And a core part of humans is our ability to feel emotion. Which means that in your relationship with another human being, you cannot be ultra logical and remove the emotional component, because logic is the marker of truth. It is true that logic is the marker of truth. A lot of times, emotions are not the marker of truth. This is why emotions cannot be your leaders, right? But that doesn't mean that we should be unemotional. That's not what it means. Because even God uses our emotions. I hope you know that God uses your emotions to talk to you sometimes. For instance, when you have a burden, what is that? A burden does not affect your mind, because many times you do not even know what the burden is about. You don't know details of what the thing that God is putting upon you is. But it affects your emotions and dampens your mood. If you know what a burden is, then you understand what I'm saying. If you don't know what a burden is, you are not doing well. Like this thing I'm describing, if you don't know it, if you don't know that God can affect your mood and dampen it so that you can pray, you are not doing well. Because the truth is, God doesn't give burdens to people that don't pray. Yes. And if you're not having burdens, it means that God doesn't trust your prayer life. It means that, you see, what a burden is a burden is an emergency from heaven. So, many times when there is something that God wants human beings to pray about in the earth, what God will do is God will throw that burden on somebody so that the person can pray. But if God doesn't trust that you will pray, he will not give you the burden. Do you understand the logic? That's the way it works. If you are not the kind of person that is given to prayer, God will not give you a burden for prayer. He won't do that. Because normally, you know they pray. How do we trust that if we give him this emergency, he will handle it? Are you following? So, the last time you received a burden is a marker of where God ranks you with regards to coming to his throne. If you are praying frequently and consistently, you'll be having burdens. God will be giving you burdens. From time to time, you can just wake up and you are just, sometimes you see, it happens differently for different people. You just don't want to talk to anybody. You just don't want to see anybody. And this is not a mood swing. This is a call to prayer. Are you following me? This is a call to prayer. There are certain times that it happens, this kind of thing happens to me, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to be alone and pray. It's not a mood swing. And how you know that it's not a mood swing is if you have walked with God for a while, you can discern that it is God that is altering, God is the person that is manipulating you. And if you take that time of prayer seriously, when you discharge the burden, you'll be fine again. And so I'm saying to you that your emotions are not to be discounted totally. They need to be put in their place. They are not to be discounted totally. But human beings are not robots. We are not only logical beings, and we cannot reduce the essence of our interaction to strictly logic. It cannot work like that. If you do that, what will happen is you will fracture somebody, because you are going to be expecting that the person functions on your level, meanwhile you are broken. For instance, how many people have seen the Big Bang Theory? So what do you people used to watch? What do you people watch? Mount Zion. It's okay, it's good. It's good. I just don't have another example now. Because in that movie there is someone who is very intelligent but lacks emotional skills. Do you know people that don't have emotional intelligence? You know people that don't know how to talk. That's what I'm talking about. They think they may be saying is the right thing, but you say this guy knows a bit talk. This guy knows a bit talk. It's not because what they are saying is wrong. It's because many times they lack the how to say it. And I'm trying to say to you that in your relationships with human beings and all of that, you cannot be so logical that you totally discount emotions. Because if you are like that, you are broken. You are a broken person. You are not normal. You are not normal. If someone has to relate with you like that, the person is going to have to be fractured too in order to relate with you properly. Because normal human beings are logical and they have emotions. That's how normal human beings are. It is abnormal to be emotionless. It's a fractured state. Are you following me? It's also a fractured state to be emotion-driven. Once I marry you, I don't want my husband to go anywhere. Then when your husband is going out, you are crying. Hey, God. Hey. It's a fractured state to be emotion-driven. What I'm saying to you is that many times people realize this in relationships, but we don't realize it in our walk with God. And so you don't come to God in the morning and say, Lord, I came to tell you that you are the best thing that's ever happened to me. Without you, where will I be? Most people don't do that kind of thing in prayer. Most people don't say to God, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Me, I will not go away. Even if anywhere you are going, I will follow you, I will chase you, I will hunt you down. We know that God chases us and there's no shadow he won't light up and all of that. You too, you need to tell God that there's no shadow that you say he will not light up. If God enters the bush, you follow him. If he enters the valley of the shadow of death, you follow him. Are you following me? How did I get here? I think I was talking about what? Huh? Swine. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think I was talking about different kinds of people. That God needs to know where your heart is. Alright? And you need to say it to him. As much as possible, you need to bring your heart before the Lord. And say, Lord, see where I am. I did try, but I know really make sense. But I want to make sense. That kind of thing. There are things that God will not say to you because he is not sure what your answer will be. There are things that God will not bring to you. There are things that God will not reveal to you because he doesn't think that you are going to be on board with it. And Jesus says that if you cast your pearls before swine, if you cast what is holy before dogs, what will happen is that they will trample you underfoot and then they will turn back and tear you to pieces. Tear you to pieces. It's not just your advice and your correction that is going to be dealt with. Even you will become a casualty of unsolicited advice. Let's go back to Matthew 5. It was an intrusive thought, so I needed to send it out. But I hope you got the point. The point is, let God not think you are a dog. Let God not think that you are a swine. Right? And also, as much as possible, let your father in the Lord not think like that. As much as possible. Try. Try to be someone that people can correct. Are you following me? Are you here? Yes. Try to be someone that they can break your heart. They can correct you. Just try. It's for your own good. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll break your heart too many times. Now, Matthew 5:13, Jesus says that if the salt loses its taste, it is good for nothing except to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. This means that it is possible for the men of this world, for unbelievers, to come to a point where they think that the church doesn't have a use. And the only thing that you can use the church for is to trod it underfoot. And you know that, if you look at Nigeria, you know that that's where we are. We are actually at the place where people think that we are just a nuisance. And the reason is because we have lost our taste. There is a distinctive we don't have anymore. And just in case you are wondering, what is our taste? Our taste is holiness. That's what it is. The thing that separates us from the world, that actually gives us the distinctive that they do not have, is the holiness and the consecrations that we live by. That is the thing that distinguishes us from them. The moment we lose that, we become useless. Are you following me? Have you not heard people talk about how that pastors are the ones that used to sleep with? So, a lot of times people say it, that you see pastors, there are two things that are always happening with pastors. They are eating church money and they are sleeping with all the fine girls. Have you heard those kinds of statements before? Now, that kind of statement is usually not from an uninformed perspective. Many of the times, the people who say these things are people who either have been victims of this kind of thing, or they are very close to people who have been victims of this kind of thing. And it has happened maybe not once, not twice, not three times, to the point where it now becomes general, it's a stereotype. And this is part of the reasons why we are as insulted and dragged and castigated as we are. This is not even persecution. This is not persecution. This is the response of the world to tasteless salt. For instance, when people are... When a pastor comes and says that if you give... So, the Lord is calling for a seed. Alright? If you give $1,000, come and stay this side. If you give 10,000 naira, come and stay this side. If you give 10K for every year of your life, come and stay in the middle. If you want long life from God, there is a seed for it. There was even one I heard one time that we were doing, in case you want your children to get married as virgins, there's a seed for it. Yes. There's a seed for it. In case you want your children to turn out well, there's a seed for it. Now, when we do that and we merchandise the grace of God upon our lives, and the church does not call it out, what will happen is that the world will see us for what we are. And a point will come when they will trample us underfoot. For instance, the conversations that are going on now on social media, a lot of people believe that every miracle that we say happens in church is fake. A lot of people believe that. Because one very funny man came out and alluded to the fact that the miracles that some people are showing are fake. And unfortunately, it be like, say, the funny man He's telling the truth. Alright? If you don't know what I'm talking about, leave it. Unfortunately, that's what it seems like. But you see, when the church does not purge cancer from out of her midst, what will happen is it will dilute the thing that we are, and in the eye of the world, we will all be tasteless. And so you see, part of the things that we need to trust God for in these days is we need to trust God for brutal signs and wonders. Like the type that used to happen in those days of those people that they called God's generals, right? Like somebody comes with goiter to church, then you lay hands on the person and the goiter falls out. You know that one you can't fake it. Like Smith Wigglesworth, you read the story of Smith, right? That there was a woman, she had like a tumor in her abdomen, and he kept punching the thing. Oh boy. And thankfully there was results. If not, maybe they would have locked that guy in jail. And the tumor fell out of her dress. It fell out on the stage. And in these kinds of times, when people doubt the miraculous, God usually tries to reclaim his name. I'm trying to say to you that in these days where we are, God is happy to do strange miracles. So you need to be asking for those kinds of things. The kinds of things that cannot be falsified. That you cannot tell anybody that this one is a lie. The person has been blind since he was 7. In fact, the 2 eyes were punctured. Then you laid hands and the person started seeing. New eyes. The person has doctor's report that he was clinically blind. Then the next day has a doctor's report that he's clinically fine. Those kinds of miracles. We need to be trusting God for those kinds of things. Because what happens when the church, when believers, when we lose our taste, is we become common. We become common. That's why I said to you that our taste is in holiness. That's the thing. It's in separation. The thing that we are that they cannot be. That's the only thing that believers can be that unbelievers cannot be. Believers can be rich, unbelievers can be rich. Believers can be prosperous, unbelievers can be prosperous. Believers can have influence, unbelievers can have influence. The thing that unbelievers can never be is consecrated, holy, set apart for God. That is where our taste is. And if we lose it, they will kill us. Are you hearing me? I'm saying to you, like I've said to you many times, that we cannot be like the world. We cannot talk like them. We cannot dress like them. We cannot sing like them. We cannot dance like them. We cannot look like them. We cannot look like them. Our survival depends on our consecration. The moment we lose our taste, what will happen is they will find out that we are good for nothing except to be trodden down underfoot. You know what it means to be trodden down underfoot? It means they will pour you on the ground and they will. That's what it means. We cannot talk like them. We cannot look like them. We cannot jump on trends like they do. We can't. And like I've told you before, even if the trend is harmless, part of the ways you show that you are different is that you don't jump on it. Even if it's harmless, what's wrong with it? Nothing is wrong with it. But there is everything wrong with you mirroring the world. There is everything wrong with you. Like the other time that people were doing, I'm not the pastor's wife, I'm the pastor's husband, I'm not the bride, It was embarrassing that churches were using, it was really embarrassing. I felt embarrassed. And if you check it, you'll find out that 95% of the things that we promote as content is something that was smuggled from the world. It was a trend that was initiated in the world. It was, I can almost bet that one church somewhere is doing cutesy and demure. Just check. You will find one church. We need to be separate. We have to be separate. That is where our taste is. This is how we bring flavor to the earth, is that we are a different kind of people. Because if we lose our saltiness, we are done for. Verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And like I said to you, when Jesus says, let your light so shine before men, what he's saying is that you need to ensure that your light is not hidden. You need to ensure that your light is not put under a bushel, number one. Number two, you need to be a city set on a hill. Because you are the light of the world. Jesus is not going to come and give you light. No, you are the light of the world. He's not going to come and give you saltiness. You are the salt of the earth. This is your identity. But whether or not we maximize our identity is now dependent on what else we do with what we are. Jesus says that no man lights a candle and puts it under a bushel. A bushel is a basket, When you light a candle, you don't put it under a basket. If you do, you burn the house, right? You don't put it under a basket. Okay, let's even say you will not burn the house. Let's say it's a lamp, a rechargeable lamp. When you light it, you put it in a place where it can give light. That's the reason why our bulbs are up. That's why they are not down. So that it can give light to the house. That there is a setting that you need to be set on so that the light can have maximal impact, can have maximal reach. Jesus says that is how you should let your light shine. Let your light so shine. This kind, in the same way, let your light shine. That's what he's saying. Are you following me? What will it look like if you are set on a candlestick? What will it look like if you are a city that is set on a hill? Because already you are light. So what will it look like if you are set for everybody to see your light? Now that's a conversation that we need to have at a subsequent time because we're out of time. Maybe we'll see if we can do that tomorrow. But let your light so shine. And the idea is that your light needs to be set on a candlestick. You cannot be hidden. You need to ensure that you are not hidden. And the reason is because you are the light of the world. It means that without you, the world will be in darkness. It means that without you, the systems of this world will look like darkness, will be in darkness. We are the ones that bring light into the world. So, for instance, when you get into a particular sphere of influence, there is a culture in that sphere of influence. Most times that's how it is. For instance, when people are artisans, the culture is the culture of disappointment. That's, come for your clothes on Tuesday. It's on Tuesday that they are going to the market. You see, now, that's a culture that is accepted. People have come to live with it. And so, if you are a Christian and you are a fashion designer, I should not have to lie to you. Because that's what we do now. When we need a cloth on 1st of December, we'll tell them that we need a cloth on 1st of November. Because we know. Because we know. So we just adjust to... But I'm saying to you that if you are a Christian, there is a light that you should bring into that space. So that when people say, now so we dey do am, you are like, no. No be so we dey do am. That's not how we roll. Are you following me? There is a darkness that is pervasive in the systems of the world. There is a darkness that is pervasive in spheres of influence. There is a darkness that is pervasive. And Jesus expects us to be light in those places. You are not the light of the church. You are the light of the world. There are spaces where people expect that if you are a functionary in this space, you smoke weed. There are spaces where people expect, like if you're a functionary in this place, it's fornication is normal. That's how we behave. Do you know that there are some NGOs that when you travel, they give you travel allowance and they pay for prostitutes for you? I'm not talking of I'm talking of all these people's United Nations, all these things that you like. They pay. So they give you the allowance. Prostitution allowance. Because when a man travels, he's away from his family for long. This long is like 1 week. Body no be firewood, So that you will not have pent-up energy. You need to relax. So, in those kinds of spaces, you are going to have to ensure that you show that you are different. That's how you bring light into those spaces. And Jesus says that when men light a candle, they do not put it under a bushel. When men light a candle, they put it on the candlestick so that it will give light to all that's in the house. And then he says, let your light so shine, which means two things. Number one, it means that because you are light, it is God's responsibility to set you. Are you following me? Are you here? It is God's responsibility to set you. And because God will set you, you need to ensure that your light so shines. There are places where, for instance, I think I was talking to someone. I can't remember who it was. But the person was doing project and they said that the sample size was maybe like 350, but they have only got like 150 responses. Like they just wanted to because 150 times 2 is 300. You understand? So instead of collecting another 150 samples, just mirror it. If you do that kind of thing, nobody will catch you. Do you understand? But the group mates, your project people, will realize that this one's Christianity is just in mouth. And like I've said to you before, that when you stand for Jesus and you stand for Christ, people will dislike you. But they will respect you. At the end of the day, they will respect you. They will not like you, but they will respect you. They will hate you, but they will respect you. Let your light so shine where? Before men, that they may see your good works. And this is a point I've made before, that the reason why your light should shine is so that they will see your good works. It means that it is possible that your good works will not be seen. Are you following? Let your light so shine before men so that they will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. It means that it is possible that your good works will not be seen. If your light does not shine, your works will not be seen. And what you will do is you will deprive God of the glory that he deserves. There is a glory that should come when you shine your light in that world. There is a glory that should come to God. If you do not live up to that billing, you are going to deny God glory. You will be owing God. There are things that God should get because he is God. And your refusal to live as light will ensure that he does not get them. I don't even know how God used to handle those kind of situations, where his child is the reason why glory is denied his name. I don't know how God handles it, but I don't want to find out. And I don't want anybody I know to find out, because there is a way God handles it. Bow your heads. Lord, we ask that you would send us help. We ask that you will help us to be salt. We ask that we will not lose our saltiness. Help us to maintain our distinctive in purity, in holiness, in consecration, in separation from the world. Lord, we ask that you will help us to be light, and that our light will shine, so that men will see our good works and give you glory. In Jesus' name we have prayed.